also known as Contra Costa Fitness. We like to talk about all things that pertain to your health, mindset, and even about the things that we don't like about gyms and the fitness industry. We hope that when you listen in on our conversations, you feel inspired and motivated to make some healthy changes in your life that will stick with you for the long run and help you live a happier, healthier life.
Yes, we especially like to talk about those things that we don't
Yes,
like about the fitness industry.
indeed.
Or the things that are just different, that we think should be different, that
Definitely.
we're doing differently.
Yeah.
I'm Coach Brandon. And yes, we like to give you some action items. We usually do that at the end, so stick around for that. If you're with us on Facebook or Instagram, give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're watching. Drop a comment, ask questions, be part of what we're doing.
We love questions.
We do. If you're not following us in one of those places, that's just a shame and you're missing out. But we appreciate you listening. But if you want to be part of the conversation, go ahead and look for one of us on Facebook or Instagram, or just look for Contra Costa Fitness, and you can join in the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Beck.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about your experience with gratitude on our last talk.
We did.
You've had a pretty big change of heart. I'll call it.
That's a way to put it.
Around routine practice of gratitude.
That's fair.
So let's start with you. You want to tell that story a little bit? How about why were you resistant? What was responsible for the change? Why is it important to you now? Or how do you practice it now?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we've mentioned it before. Several times probably, but when anyone brought up the idea of any sort of practice around gratitude, lists, journals, anything, really just anything, especially when you and I started working together a few years ago, to say I was resistant is probably an understatement.
Yeah, what was your first thought?
Well, I was in a pretty dark place at that time, and I was depressed. I didn't really have good personal relationships in my life. I felt like I wasn't appreciated much, if at all. And I was struggling emotionally, financially. It was a few months into the pandemic. And at the time I was caring for an ill parent. So I was just completely shut off from the rest of the world in this tiny little depressing bubble. And it was really hard for me to see anything I had to be grateful for. And I can say, looking back now, that my mindset was just really garbage. It was in a bad place. So
let's not trash your mindset.
That's
Rebecca's speech right there. Rebecca's
totally talking my language.
She's a big pun fan.
Okay.
All right.
So
back on track.
Something that really started happening that was pretty awesome was I can't really tell you how or where it started happening specifically, but it was really gradual how the art of gratitude just kind of started working its way into my life. And it was very helpful to have a friend
cough, cough, enter Brandon.
That practiced what I used to consider extreme gratitude on a daily basis.
Extreme.
At the time, I thought it was extreme, right? And I started finding these little things to be grateful for in my daily life, mostly due to good influence and shifting my energy to focus on good stuff rather than not thinking about the bad stuff so much. And that is quite literally practicing gratitude, but it was just a tiny little thing, and I'm making it sound really easy, but it wasn't at all. It was really, really, really hard for me, and it just kind of snuck up on me over time. A big part of it was allowing and forming healthy relationships in my life and then minimizing the unhealthy ones. And now gratitude is just a part of my daily life. It sneaks in where I don't even realize it's there. But every morning I write a gratitude list and I keep it simple. 3 things, just 3. That's it. Every day, 3 things that I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's coffee. Sometimes it's my sobriety, my friends, or just as simple as I'm glad I don't have to think about or worry about how I'm going to eat today. Right. And I thought that I was taking it down to a really teeny tiny small thing, like being able to eat. That's a small thing. Right. And then one day you and I were talking about how you sometimes come up with a list of 50 things, which sounded crazy even just a couple days ago. And the one thing that stood out to me the most, do you remember what that was?
Shoelaces.
Yes,
We talked
shoelaces.
about shoelaces last time, I think.
Yeah, it was shoelaces.
Yeah, think about if you don't have those, right?
That's teeny tiny too.
Bummer. Yeah, it's a small thing, but it makes a big difference, right?
For sure.
Yeah, we can take a lot for granted if we're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're all like creatures that are programmed to want more.
Mm-hmm.
And so to search for more and
For
look
sure.
for more than what we have, that's just a survival thing, right? And
Yeah.
most of us are truly living in a world of abundance, if not excess.
Yeah.
All right. So having enough to eat, right, is something that humans used to, right? We're programmed to worry about that. Well, we don't have to, like, a lot of us don't have to worry about that. We are not in a place right now where we have to,
thank goodness,
to worry about that. Right.
Because I like to eat.
Right. So to somebody, right. But there are plenty of people who do have to worry.
There are. That. Yeah.
And so that is definitely something to be grateful for. And when we start sort of thinking that way, I think we can identify just tons of stuff.
Yeah, very true.
And sometimes it might not have anything to do with those things. It might just be like, I'm, grateful for Captain's snoring behind us. Captain's laying down.
I hope you can hear him snoring. It's adorable.
Hear him. Yeah, or I'm grateful. The other day one time when I was having a tough time. I know I'm getting off subject a little bit here, but
it's okay.
Story time. When I was living in Oregon and I had experienced some really some brutal trauma, and I was in a bad place, just kind of like you were describing, and I was isolated and all of that. And I was working at this hotel, and every day I would go out to the dumpster to take out the trash, which was my job. Captain's really going back here.
Really snoring.
And in this ancient dumpster, there was this little flower. I don't know what kind of flower it was, like growing out of the corner of the dumpster. Mm-hmm. And like that little flower just kind of turned into this little like symbol of Brandon. I was like, okay, you can, like, if that flower can grow in like literally in trash, then I can make it through whatever I'm going through. And so yeah, that little flower, like, I really became super grateful for that silly little flower. So yeah, you can find stuff. Sometimes it's just a stranger, saying hello. Mm-hmm. If we look, we find it, right?
Yeah, so true. I totally believe in that now.
Yeah. I know, woo-woo bullshit, right? Like, that's how you felt. That's how I felt about it years ago.
But I mean, it is clear to me now, like now in present day, how a practice of daily gratitude has helped me live a happier life. And I might go so far as to say a healthier one too. I mean, I really feel that way, but is that actually a thing? Like having a better, happier, healthier life with a practice of daily gratitude?
Happier is healthier.
That's fair.
Right?
I agree.
For the most part, and vice versa, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It sounds like kind of woo-woo BS. Sometimes I'm resistant, right? If you ask me to do, practice some gratitude, I'm like, you can go to hell.
Well, when you said 50 things the other day, I'm like, what? Are you insane? That's crazy. So I guess we're all still a little resistant.
Sure. Well, oh my gosh, he's Captain. Yeah. So there is that resistance, but there have been tons of studies. Right. This is well researched, actually.
It is.
There are a lot of studies that link regular gratitude practice with tons of other health benefits. Gratitude is, and if we get a little bit into the weeds about like how we practice it, how do you do that? Like, how do you make that work? Right. Gratitude's sort of a fake it till you make it kind of thing, or it can be.
It can be.
Right. At least in the beginning, especially in the
Oh,
beginning.
especially in the beginning. You totally
Yeah.
have to fake it till you make
And
it.
then there's that whole, like, if you're expecting something from that practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole mindset is sort of paradoxical.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
fine, I'll practice a gratitude list because my life sucks and my happy ass annoying coach says it's important, and it better make me happy because it feels stupid. That
Get
knot
out of my
needs
head.
to actual quote from Rebecca's session notes.
Yes.
Not really, but yeah, that knot, we have to untie that knot a little bit, right? In order for us to have some serenity and contentment, right? That's what we're after here. And yeah, that practice, just rote practice, sometimes just repetition helps. And we can actually have that happiness and peace and serenity that we might not even know we're looking for.
Yeah.
You're looking at me like, go on.
Go on.
And to your point, yeah, it really does show up in real ways in our health.
It does.
I brought it back eventually.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary what you were saying earlier, how accurate to my thinking that actually was. This totally was something I struggled with at first, right? The fake it till you make it bit. I'm not good at faking it. I'm just not good at that. So with the help of a friend, okay, to be fair, 2 friends, you and Christina, if you're listening, Christina, thank you. I found a way to look for things to be grateful for and just decided one day just to try writing a few things down and making a gratitude list. I also did this at a really difficult time in my life where I honestly really felt like there was nothing good going for me. So, do you know what it did? It actually helped me appreciate how many good things I did have going for me. Yeah. And a funny thing happens. My depression started to lift a little bit, and I really didn't have to try to see the good stuff. I was able to just see the good things that were happening in my life.
Yeah, it's kind of a trip how that happens. Yeah. Like, oh, when I look for good things, I find them. Oh, that's crazy.
And then I don't have to look anymore. I just see them everywhere.
Yes. And when we get into that practice, it starts to feel like they just sort of appear.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's there.
We become kind of programmed to start looking for or receiving those things. Right? But I do want to underscore the physical effects of any of these psycho-emotional practices, whatever you want to call them, is woo-woo BS, right? Like
unicorn farts, is that what we're calling them?
Granola, right?
Yeah.
There was a study published in 2012. 2012 that showed,
yes, correct.
That showed that people who regularly practiced had a practice of gratitude. Whether it was lists, I can't recall exactly what their practice was, but they're practicing in some form, like receiving and expressing gratitude. Those people experienced fewer aches and pains.
Yeah.
Right. And report feeling healthier.
Less pain. Yay.
Yay, less pain. Another habit that we don't really appreciate until it's a serious dumpster fire is sleep. So it's super important for your overall health. And there are tons of studies out there that link having a practice of gratitude in your life to better sleep. And yeah, sleep is way more important.
So important.
Than people realize. And it can affect all kinds of stuff.
Everything.
I mean, if you're here just to hear about weight loss, right? That's
sleep.
That's a factor, and it's a big one. Your hormones, your immune system, blood pressure, your cardiovascular health, right? So you've, experienced some struggles recently with your sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's been a struggle for a while.
Some dots recently, right?
For sure. And actually recently, I haven't really been getting enough sleep, not because I'm not sleeping well, but because of my schedule and not taking care of myself. And, I've also been struggling with some stuff around my weight. Not like I'm trying to lose weight or anything, but just nothing big. But I'm just working really hard trying to hit a goal that I wasn't really seeing results, and I was starting to get frustrated. And like we talked about last time, I had a really rough day about a week or so ago, and it just clicked at the end of that day, actually the next day. My sleep was really, really slacking and affecting me in many ways for a few reasons, but I drifted away from my daily practice of gratitude. And I have this activity I do in the evenings that's tied to my morning gratitude list. And it just kind of creates these bookends to my day. And without having that, the absence of that routine and daily ritual, it had a big impact on my sleep and then on my overall health. And you also know this, Brandon, but it's not surprising at all that these studies I read about gratitude and your health, they all say the same thing. Grateful people are also a lot more likely to take care of their health.
Right.
Be intentional about taking care of their health.
So that can, and that can get a little bit cloudy, but right, like what's the cart and what's the horse? But it's part of the puzzle. I really believe that it's a big part of the picture.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's these practices, whether it's this or any healthy practice, right? Anything that's healthy and especially that makes us feel better. It shows up in other parts of our life.
Yes, it does.
Right. And so, you could argue that, like, well, I don't know, it's not the gratitude practice that's, lowering blood pressure. Maybe it's, getting better sleep, or the people who practice, write a gratitude list every day, probably meditate and pray and, eat grass. I don't
So who knows which one it is, but
does it matter?
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Who cares?
But there are studies that have isolated these things, and they're pretty fascinating. Some of those biological events or benefits, but following like the biopsychosocial model, we can see where this practice, can make other impacts, right?
Right.
So socially is kind of a no-brainer, right? We know our mood can affect others around us. Like attracts like, right? Seen some of that?
Well, and exactly. And it's not a fun place to be for anyone. So, having a sour mood, but we can give tons of examples from our personal lives, and we won't. And what we've observed through coaching others also, right? But what about the science of it? Is there science to back up what effect practicing gratitude can have on your mood or emotions?
Yeah, I mean, it can
rather than talking about our mood and emotions.
Let's get away from the subjective data.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
It does. It comes down to a biological, thing. I mean, everything kind of does for the most part. Like if you follow it long enough, I believe.
Fair.
Maybe I don't. I don't know. We won't get into that. But emotions, like contentment and happiness, are basically governed by neurotransmitters, right? Like dopamine and serotonin are the big ones that we talk about. You can get into like crazy stuff. You can go deep down that rabbit hole. But the brain receives some sort of stimulus, right? And it can be all sorts of things, healthy and unhealthy.
For sure.
Exercise, food, alcohol and drugs, sex, meditation, laughter.
All of those things.
Right? All of those things. I mean, it can come from just about anywhere, right? Sometimes just a smile changes your mood and your day, right? So surprise, right? Expressing and receiving gratitude does that. It releases these neurotransmitters. Yeah. Like releases them into the right.
Release the dopamine.
Yes. Synapses, there's a whole thing there, and then there's reuptake and all of that. But the big takeaway, right, is that we can create that stimulus. We don't have to wait for it to come from the sky.
Nope.
And we can choose to and practice and make ourselves better at receiving those things,
You're
that
saying,
stimulus.
I have the power.
You have the
I have the
power.
power.
The power of Grayskull. 80s kid. Well, the more we practice that, though, the more the brain is conditioned to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like we were talking about earlier, like, the more we look for it, the more we find it. Eventually,
For
it's
sure.
just like, oh my God, this is coming
There it
from
is.
everywhere. Right.
Yep.
And so we create and strengthen. What's happening is when we do that, is that we are creating and strengthening those neural pathways.
Brain power.
Right. Brain power. So like any habit, the more we do it, the more automatic it becomes.
Yeah. And like we talked about earlier, I did have a hard time with this at first. Like, what do I have to be grateful for? This is stupid. It's fake. Like, I don't have anything to be grateful for, so I'm just going to be making shit up, right?
Well, it's like learning to throw with your left hand.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
You got to practice it, and it feels dumb at first, but
how do we practice it if we're not feeling it, right? Like, we've talked about different ways of practicing gratitude, like receiving versus expressing and giving gratitude, all that stuff. How do we practice it if we're not feeling it? Yeah, like, how do we actually do it if we're not feeling grateful?
Yeah, right. And like you said earlier, like, and like I have experienced, right, it can feel inauthentic and phony, right?
Yeah,
and
sometimes does.
Sometimes we have to, again, like, we have to create the feelings. And sometimes, like, I'm just like off. I'm like, okay, I wrote my list and I'm not on fire, and maybe I need to, try something else. But we can create those feelings with our actions in practice rather than the other way around. I think a lot of us feel like, or think that in order to, it's that whole like, thinking your way into positive action versus, or acting your way into positive thinking rather than thinking your way into positive action.
That used to stress me out.
Gratitude is kind of a self-fulfilling thing.
It is.
Right? So the more we practice it, right, the more we see that we're surrounded by great things, and the less we see and ruminate on the negative.
Yes.
Right? If nothing else, it's a distraction for a minute if we can allow ourselves to be distracted, right?
That's fair.
We can really, in a very real way, though, create our own happiness. And I know that sounds like
that. Doesn't
too,
sound real, but I like it.
Right? Well, it's not like it happens like boom, like I made a gratitude list and I'm this happy MFer. Like,
I know you hear people talk about it and you think it's instant, like all of a sudden I'm going to have this sudden rush of like, no, it's gradual. It happens over time, and you got to be patient, and you got to just like slowly allow it into your life.
Yeah. So the trick is, right? Yeah. How do we kick that off when we feel like we're not in a fantastic spot?
That is the trick.
Are ruminating on the negative. Yeah. So, like we said a minute ago, it can be like, fake it till you make it type thing, where we practice the behavior until we internalize it and feel it and blah blah blah, blah, and see how it can change our world. We think others have been struck grateful by God, or something, or they're delusional, or they have better lives than us, right?
Maybe both.
That comparison. Some days I'm not mindful. Sometimes I'm way off base. But one day the person smiling at me on the way into the grocery store just like pisses me off.
True.
Right? It doesn't happen much anymore, but for being kind, right? Like, I'm like,
what are you smiling about?
Yeah, what do you have to smile about, right? Everything and everyone is stupid. Like, I can, go there. I used to
those days.
Live there, yeah. Or maybe they don't even exist. That's my jam. It's an easy one, right? To numb out. Like, I've got the blinders on, right? I'm not all there. I'm just in my own zone, right?
Your own little depressing bubble.
Oh yeah, so fun. Such a great place.
Yeah.
The conversation's excellent in there. But when I'm mindful, choosing to receive that smile as a gift and appreciate it, right? Well, then my day is just full of shit to be happy about.
Yeah, I like that way better.
And so, like, if you only hear like one thing today, like if you only hear one thing today, and you can ignore the data and the studies, but again, I want to bring it back to, I find what I look for.
Everybody finds what they're looking for.
Right? If I look for the worst, I'll find the worst.
Totally.
And if I look for beauty, I'll find beauty.
Yep.
Right. Also, I can only give what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I look for and find the negative things, that's all I've got to give back.
Yep.
All right. And so I'm going to keep that world going.
It's not going to stop.
Right. I'm going to keep creating that world. And when I look for and find good things, then I have good things to put back into the world.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen and fall on you like an apple dropping on your head. You got to look for it.
Yeah, so we have like kind of two parts to it for me, like receiving and accepting gratitude. Finding things, right? Literally looking for the things for which we can be grateful. And like we just said, like the more you practice, the more you look, the more you find it. Right. And we start to recognize that it's all around it. And then we can express and give it to others, which is where this gets really powerful. I think when we get good at this, we find some really deep peace. I really do believe that you got to give it away to keep it. Right. Which isn't like a me idea. Right. Like that's in all kinds of,
but it is very much a you practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So even and eventually, hopefully, maybe sometimes, right, we start to recognize the hard stuff as growth opportunities.
Ooh, yeah,
doors
that's new.
Opening to new things, right? A lot of the time we don't get that until with retrospect, but when we see it enough, you can start to sort of turn down the volume on how brutal those tough times might be, right?
Turn down the volume on the brutal times. I like that.
yeah, I'm into that.
I'm totally into that. Yeah.
And when we can do that, like then it starts the ball rolling, right? We can think more clearly. We're more productive. We sleep better. We make better health choices.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
Our relationships tend to be better. We're more resilient, and again, there's like data to support all of it.
Yes,
really.
All of those things. I've felt it and I've experienced it. People used to tell me that this was true. I used to think they were full of crap and I didn't believe them and I thought they were just feeding me a line, but it's true. It does happen. So let's talk about some favorite gratitude practices, things that we can actually do. I think what's especially important is how to get started, right?
Yes.
I already shared mine earlier, and I shared that recently with a small circle of friends that were having some tough times, 3 in particular. And I started texting them my list in the morning. So I write in my journal my 3 things, and I would take a picture and I would text it to them. And by the end of the day, all of them had at some point throughout the day texted me back with 3, sometimes even more than 3 things that they were grateful for. But what if you don't have a little annoying friend like me to text you every day? What are some things that you can do?
Yeah, there are so many like different ways. I mean, and you can get really kind of creative. And like, I'm not a huge list guy, but I have been. And that's kind of how I got started, I suppose. And I know for me that I had to recognize that, yes, it felt kind of stupid at first to just like recite a gratitude list.
Yes, it did.
I mean, it can't hurt. That's the thing. No. Like so many of these things, like, dude, just
do it.
I can always stop.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, well, next Tuesday, I'm just going to give up on this gratitude thing if I want to. It takes 0 time, 0 investment, right?
Fair.
So
and accurate.
There is, sort of the starter's mindset, I think, is just that's where it starts for me. Like nothing happens if I'm not like a little bit willing, right? Some sort of willingness. Sure, I'll just like try this thing. So the starter's mindset, like be willing.
Yeah. I'm just going to do it.
Which is a whole other thing. Like just be willing, just be that.
Again, just snap your fingers and be willing.
I don't know. Or to say, screw it. Like, I don't know. I got
just
nothing to
lose.
It. Yeah.
Just go for it. Give it a shot.
Yeah. I've got nothing to lose but a bad mood. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
darn.
Then, and this might be like, this is less conventional than a gratitude list. Like I like to have little rules. Like one of my rules is to acknowledge all people who I come across, like who I come in contact with. So like it drives some people, like some of my friends crazy. They're like, dude, do you have to say hi to everybody?
I know.
I'm like, yeah. Say hello. That's one of my rules.
I feel more friendly when I'm around you,
and
because
it
I'm like, oh,
feels
he
good.
said hi and I'm with him.
It feels good. Like, not just to their dog either.
Aw.
Like, that's one of my new ones. Say hi to the dog
And
the
the
owner.
person.
Yeah. Another is to be of small, tiny service wherever possible.
Okay.
Right? Hold the door. Give away a smile. I mean, some of this is just manners, right?
I was gonna say,
but
gratitude or manners,
but
maybe a little bit of both.
True though, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what some of those manners are, right? But yeah, sometimes giving away a smile, giving somebody a smile is service, right? I know it feels like it when I receive it from another person, from a stranger that smiles at me. Pick up the pen that somebody dropped. I don't know, basic courtesy stuff goes a long way and puts us in a position then to receive expressions of gratitude.
Yes.
Also.
It does seem pretty easy when you say it like that. And I have definitely noticed, like when we're on hikes, we'll be talking or you'll be talking to somebody else. And the moment another hiker walks by, you just divert your attention and say hello and give them a nice little smile. And at first I was like, okay, so we're just talking to everybody, huh? But then, now I think it's pretty cool and it's also pretty easy. And I've noticed too that like sometimes you'll see people who are kind of in their own little bubble, maybe a little grouchy, and there's this really nice guy I don't know who's on the same trail as me who just smiled at me and said hello, and suddenly their mood changes and their face lights up. It goes a long way.
Yeah. And, surprise, sometimes people see this dude walking down the trail and they're not expecting a nice guy. So, but yeah, like, I don't know. It is. It's easy.
It is easy.
It's easy. But don't get me wrong either. Like I love me a gratitude list. I'm just trying to think a little outside the box.
Yeah.
Right. Those little rules become fun.
They do.
They do. And I do think it is important though to practice, in a concrete way. I like the old like Post-it, like write down a thing or two and stick it on your mirror or your fridge. Leave it up there for a while. Come up with something new every day if you're into it. If you're, crafty, like, have a cute little chalkboard or dry erase board. I don't know. Have a gratitude board. As far as like the daily gratitude list back, like that we're all, most of us are familiar with. Yeah, I like to name as many things as possible.
Yeah, you do.
The 50 item gratitude list really forces me to
you just go on with those lists sometimes.
It's great, you know what? And it happens like so much faster than I think it will. I think I'm going to spend like all day and I've got to come up with all these profound things.
Dude,
like,
I can't believe the stuff you come up with sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, shit. Like I can be grateful for sidewalks, Sounds ridiculous, but like, yeah, like that's a thing. I grew up in a place that didn't have them, and I was like, no, I'm gonna get run over. Yeah, I walked home from school, and so all kinds of stuff, Yeah, and it might just be like, I don't know. Yeah, we can go down those lists, and it happens faster than you think.
Sure does.
So, again, and it puts me in that mindset where I am looking, I'm looking for things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I write it down. Sometimes I just name them off while I'm driving. And I find all kinds of stuff, sometimes silly and ridiculous. And sometimes I find really unexpected gems. So
I like that. I did trying to find things that are different than just like a gratitude list.
Good.
I found this really cool blog. It was from this meditation app, right? They had a blog online and it listed 10 different ways to practice gratitude.
Okay.
And there were some pretty obvious ones on the list, a gratitude journal, the ones you mentioned earlier, like being of service to others and simply saying thank you more often. But there were a couple of really crafty ones too. And so, wow, I am grateful that Captain gets such good sleep.
I'm grateful I don't have sleep apnea.
Okay.
I might actually.
Well, so here, there are a couple really cool ones on this list that I like that I'm going to share. So setting a gratitude alarm. This is a really good one if you're just starting and trying to find a way to do this. Set a couple alarms throughout your day to just stop and reflect for a second on the things that you're grateful for. So just stop and like, oh, I'm really grateful for this tree that's giving me shade. And when you're taking a walk on your lunch break, and pretty soon it just becomes part of your regular day to stop and be thankful.
I've done this.
Uh-huh.
And it is funny when that alarm goes off sometimes. One time that I specifically remember, that alarm went off and I was on BART. And it was hot as
was not a lot to be grateful for.
People were sweaty and it was gnarly. And I was like, I'm so grateful that public transportation is taking me to where I need to go, so I don't have to drive. I'm grateful, hopefully in a couple of days, that everyone on this train is healthy and nobody's sneezing on me or...
Lovely.
I was like not feeling super grateful in the moment. So,
but it's
that's
good to
fun.
Stop and force you to be grateful, right?
Force you. I like
force
that.
you.
Force you into gratitude.
Force you into it. Another one I really liked, which I've experienced a little bit lately, and so that's why this stood out to me, was reflect on your challenges. So just stop and look back at things that you've had to overcome and how they've helped you grow. Oh, I'm unexpectedly getting emotional. This has happened to me a lot in the last year, where just stop and look at where I was a year ago handling things, and, look at something that's been challenging for you and see it as an opportunity for growth and see how much you've grown. It's amazing how, that's really been big for me. I really like that one. Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
All right.
But sometimes we can look at, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. And for a long time, I did not. I know Captain's really going.
Grumble.
Now he's up. It's easy to be, like ashamed of a lot of things, or like your story, right? Or to even say that in public. Like, I'm an alcoholic. Captain's creating mayhem over here. And now I'm super grateful for that, because it enables me to help other people. Like without that story, without that history, I'm unable.
Yeah.
Right. To help somebody who might be going through, the same thing.
Or even understand where they are and know how to help them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Doctors and psychologists have been trying for ages to do that. I am able to do that because I have that story. So, it's so things like that. Yeah, looking at those hard things, and recognizing what they do for us. That's tremendous.
Okay, there's one more thing. Are you ready? This was the last one, and I really liked this one. So express gratitude to loved ones. So just taking a moment to express gratitude to the important people in your life. It's just something as simple as saying thank you can go a long way to make their day brighter. And it can also solidify and strengthen your relationship with them too. Actually, right before we recorded the podcast, we went to a ball game on Sunday with a bunch of friends. And right before we recorded the podcast, I went to put my phone on silent, and somebody texted me and said, I'm really glad that you were at the ball game on Sunday. And that just makes a big deal. It makes a big difference to me.
Yeah,
and it just makes me
believer.
Yeah, it makes me really love and appreciate that person a lot more. Vanessa, I love
you. Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. Like, let people know.
Yeah.
Let people know.
Tell them they're loved.
Yeah. It's important.
And
I won't go any further into why. It's it's important.
It is. It's important. Try it. That's my favorite one. Just send somebody a text and say, hey, thank you for being an awesome friend. I love you. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Do it as often as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, before I get emotional, let's get out of here.
Let's do it.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
And thank you for being part of our community. And I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you too.
Please do continue what you do out there.
Yeah.
Lift somebody up today. If you need help being lifted up, raise your hand.
That's what we're here for.
Right. Yeah, that is. And that's what this community is for. And we will see you soon.
Bye, guys.